Welcome to this deep dive. Okay, let's forget the big armies and foreign enemies for just a moment. Today, we're unpacking something really counterintuitive. The surprising truth about why tyrants often fall. And it's not from threats abroad, but, well, from the very people standing closest to them.
It's a powerful idea, definitely. And, history seems to back it up again and again. We've pulled together some really fascinating material here, historical accounts, political science, even psychological analysis to dig into this question.
Yeah, so our mission, it's really to understand the hidden workings of tyrannical power. Why the people inside the palace walls, right there in the inner circle, why can they be the most dangerous threat?
Exactly. There's a quote, I think, from Hissène Habré, the former leader of Chad.
Oh, right.
He said something like, "These enemies are here, they are not to be found abroad, they are close to us and even within our ranks."
That really nails it, doesn't it?
It does. The biggest, most immediate danger to a strong man. It isn't always, say, a foreign army or some huge popular uprising. So often, it's betrayal. A conspiracy hatched by people you thought were completely loyal.
Okay, let's dive right in then. There's a great story from the history books that just perfectly illustrates this. The overthrow of Tsar Peter III.
Ah, yes. By his wife.
By his wife, who then becomes Catherine the Great. This is way back in, 1762?
1762, yeah. Picture it. Late June, Catherine's at a summer villa, Montplaisir, near Peterhof Palace outside St. Petersburg. Her husband, Peter, he's the Tsar, but honestly, he's managed to tick off pretty much everyone who matters at court.
And not just politically, right? He wasn't exactly making Catherine's life easy. Public insults, drunken threats. She apparently felt her life was genuinely in danger.
Oh, absolutely. But it went beyond the personal. His political moves were, well, baffling, especially this weird obsession he had with Frederick the Great of Prussia.
Prussia, the country Russia had just been fighting a really bloody war against.
Exactly. And Peter basically saves Prussia from defeat. Then, to add insult to injury, he makes his own soldiers wear Prussian-style uniforms.
Ouch. For the Imperial Guard who'd just beaten them.
You can imagine. Deeply insulting. On top of that, he refuses land. Frederick offers him, then announces plans to go to war with Denmark over Schleswig.
Which meant nothing to Russia strategically.
Zero. The troops were exhausted, and he wants to drag them into this pointless fight. Meanwhile, Catherine, who was German-born, is doing the total opposite. Learning Russian, really embracing the Orthodox faith, making allies with the military, the elites.
Trying to be seen as Russian while he seemed determined not to be.
Precisely. She was building support where he was just burning bridges.
So the whole situation is incredibly tense. Peter's losing support, Catherine's quietly gaining it, at least with key people. And then comes this flashpoint moment. A soldier bursts into Catherine's room early one morning.
Yeah, the accounts are vivid. He bursts in yelling, "The time has come. You must get up and come with me."
She must have been terrified, confused.
Totally. She asks what's going on, and the soldier says, "Pasek is arrested."
Ah, Captain Pasek, one of her co-conspirators in the plot against Peter.
Exactly. So his arrest means the whole thing could unravel. If Pasek talks under torture, Catherine's finished. Execution.
So what does she do? Panic? Try to run?
Nope. Completely the opposite. She sees this is it. Maximum danger, yes, but also maybe the only chance. Still in her night clothes, throws on a black dress, gets in a carriage, and rides straight for the barracks of the Izmailovsky Guards in St. Petersburg. What are the key regiments?
Bold move. How did they react?
According to the sources, they just swarmed her, kissing her hands, her feet, her dress hem, pledging total loyalty.
Wow.
From there, she goes palace to palace, regiment to regiment, gathering support, priests, senators, the Winter Palace Guards. She's rallying the core of the power structure.
Okay, and what's Peter doing while all this is happening? He hears the news back at Peterhof, right? He still has troops.
Thousands of troops, yeah. His general apparently tells him, "March on St. Petersburg now. Crush this."
Makes sense.
But he doesn't. He just freezes. The accounts describe him as distraught, confused, just dithering. And while he's dithering, Catherine makes another incredible move. She literally changes into the green uniform of the Imperial Guards. His guards, gets on a white horse and rides out at the head of her new army towards Peterhof.
Unbelievable. The Tsar is paralyzed, and she's leading troops in his own uniform against him.
It was decisive. Peter just crumbled, abdicated unconditionally. He was imprisoned and dead within a week.
So here's a guy ruling an empire of, 17 million people, with thousands of soldiers still technically loyal, but he loses everything because he lost the support of a handful of key people, the right regiments, the senators, the insiders.
And that perfectly tees up this this really useful framework for understanding how this works. Political scientists Bruce Bueno de Mesquita and Alastair Smith, they lay it out very clearly. They suggest thinking about power in any system by looking at 3 key groups.
Okay, what are these groups?
So first, you've got the nominal selectorate. That's the biggest group. Basically, everyone who could, in theory, have a say in who rules.
Like all eligible voters in a democracy.
Exactly. In the U.S., you're talking tens, hundreds of millions of people over 18, the big pool.
Got it.
Smaller than that is the real selectorate. These are the people whose choices actually decide who holds power.
So not just theoretical influence, but real impact.
Right. In the U.S., you could argue it's technically the Electoral College, but practically, it's more like swing state voters, major donors, powerful lobbyists. Their support genuinely matters for the outcome. You know, a vote in Wisconsin might swing things. A vote in Kansas probably won't in a presidential race.
Okay, makes sense. The people who really choose.
And finally, the smallest group, the winning coalition. This is the absolute minimum number of people from the real selectorate whose support you need to gain power, or just hang on to it.
The essential core, like the minimum number of swing state voters to win the Electoral College.
Precisely. Now, here's the kicker for tyrants. In authoritarian regimes, these groups shrink dramatically. Forget the Electoral College. Forget worrying about millions of voters.
Right.
For someone like Tsar Peter, his nominal selectorate was huge, 17 million subjects. But his real selectorate, and especially his winning coalition, tiny. Maybe just a few key army regiments, palace guards, some top officials.
So he didn't need to keep everyone happy, but losing that tiny group, that was fatal.
Instantly fatal. And the data really backs this up. One analysis looked at authoritarian leaders between 1950 and 2012. Get this. 65% of those who lost power were kicked out by insiders from their own regime.
65%. Wow. So not foreign invasions, not mass revolutions usually.
Not usually. Most often, it's the people already inside the system.
Okay. So if you're a tyrant, your main job isn't really charming the masses. It's managing this small, powerful group, your winning coalition.
It's a constant balancing act. And they basically use 2 main tools, the carrot and the stick.
The carrot. That's paying them off, right?
Yeah.
Keeping them sweet.
Pretty much. Tyrants need a reliable flow of cash, serious cash, to keep that small winning coalition loyal and happy. But not just any kind of money source works best.
What do you mean?
Well, the ideal source doesn't rely too much on, say, the skills or education of the general population. Because if you have to spend money educating everyone, well, educated people might start asking difficult questions or figure out how to organize against you.
Ah, right. So this is where natural resources come in. Oil, diamonds.
Bingo. Oil, gas, diamonds, minerals. They're like a tyrant's dream resource.
Hugely profitable. They usually need relatively few people to extract them. And those people often have specialized skills already.
And they can just sell access to foreign companies.
Often, yeah. Dictators can cut deals with international firms who handle the drilling, the refining, the shipping, and frankly, those companies sometimes prefer dealing with one strong man who can ignore pesky things like legislatures or environmental rules rather than a messy democracy. So the money flows straight to the tyrant and their inner circle. Bypasses the population, keeps the key people happy. Oil and dictatorship go hand in hand, as one source put it.
Exactly. But, money isn't always enough. Or sometimes it runs low, and that's when you see the stick come out much more forcefully. Repression. Purges.
The elimination of rivals, even potential rivals.
Precisely. A purge means removing someone from that ruling coalition. Could be demotion, prison, exile, or execution. Machiavelli knew this, right? He said you have to either pamper people or destroy them. Harm them a little, they'll hit back. Harm them seriously. They can't. Tyrants aim to finish the job.
You'd think the other elites, the ones not purged, would be terrified by this, but initially they might actually like it.
It sounds perverse, but yes. Initially, think about it. Resources are finite. Power, contracts, luxuries. When someone gets purged, their slice of the pie is suddenly up for grabs.
Ah, same cake, fewer people.
Exactly that logic. For the ones who remain, it can look like an opportunity. A chance to move up, grab more resources, get rid of a rival.
Okay, so they might go along with it, or even quietly cheer it on as long as they feel safe and are benefiting. But there's a dangerous tipping point here, isn't there? The sources call it the Icarus effect.
That's the perfect term for it. At first, yeah, elites might be happy getting a bigger slice. But what happens if the purges become too random, too frequent? What if loyalty doesn't seem to guarantee safety anymore?
Then the calculation changes dramatically.
Right. Suddenly, the hope of future gain is completely overshadowed by the very real fear of being the next one purged. The minister who was happy last week is now sweating, wondering if he said the wrong thing, if he looked at the leader the wrong way.
They realize they're flying way too close to the sun.
Exactly. The panic starts to set in. And the very people who supported or benefited from the purges can suddenly turn into enemies driven by self-preservation. They might decide to act against the tyrant before the tyrant acts against them. The tool meant to secure power becomes the trigger for its collapse.
So even if you're juggling the carrots and sticks perfectly, there's this other huge fundamental problem baked into tyranny, this dictator's dilemma.
Yeah, this is really fascinating. A regime built on fear is inherently, well, opaque, even to the leader themselves.
How so?
Because the tyrant creates this climate where nobody dares offer real criticism or bad news. But that silence affects everyone, including the advisors who might actually have good information or, sensible advice.
So the leader never really knows what people truly think. Is that smile genuine loyalty or just fear? Is that advice sound or just what they think the boss wants to hear?
It's totally rational, from the tyrant's perspective, to suspect everyone, to assume the worst. And this leads directly to this awful trade-off, prioritizing loyalty over competence every time.
You surround yourself with sycophants, with yes men, people who tell you you're brilliant even when you're making terrible decisions.
And anyone who dares to speak an uncomfortable truth, they get purged or sidelined.
So what's the result?
The top ranks fill up with people who are loyal, sure, but often incompetent. And over time, the regime just gets worse at actually doing things, solving problems, running the economy, managing crises. It becomes less and less effective.
The tyrant becomes the smartest person in the room, but only because they kicked everyone else out.
Exactly. They trap themselves in this bubble, this echo chamber. Their view of reality gets more and more distorted. And that's when they start making really catastrophic mistakes.
You can see that dynamic maybe with someone like Russia's Vladimir Putin. One analysis points out how his advisors shifted over time. Early on, there were more technocrats, people focused on the economy, managers.
Right, but over the years, their influence seems to have faded, replaced by the Siloviki, the men of force.
From intelligence, the military, the police, people like Narishkin, Bortnikov.
Yeah, and these guys, their whole training, their worldview, it's often built around seeing threats everywhere. Suspicion, paranoia, it's kind of baked in.
There was that example from 2014, right? The meeting about Ukraine after Yanukovych fled.
Yes, a crucial all-night meeting. Complex situation, political, economic, military factors. But who did Putin apparently listen to most? The Siloviki. And the decision that came out of that. Start working on returning Crimea to Russia.
And you see a feedback loop potentially forming there.
Absolutely. The advisors see the West as a threat. Putin takes a more hostile stance. The West reacts, confronts Russia, which then confirms the Siloviki's paranoid worldview, which makes Russian policy even more belligerent. It's a cycle fed by that filtered information and the focus on loyalists.
This distorted reality, it can start really young for some dictators, thinking about Kim Jong's childhood.
Oh yeah, those accounts are something else. Living in this completely artificial world, a huge estate, private chefs, tutors, golf carts. The story about summoning a naval engineer to fix a toy boat.
And being treated like a general when he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Real generals bowing to him, carrying a pistol at 11.
For most kids, the world pushes back eventually. You learn you're not the center of the universe. But for someone like Kim, maybe that never really happened. That kind of upbringing, that extreme isolation and manufactured reality, it can profoundly warp how you see the world, how you deal with reality, with dissent later on.
It sounds unbelievably stressful, not just for the people living under them, but for the tyrant, too. That dictator's dilemma means you can never trust anyone. Everyone's a potential knife in the back.
It's a huge amount of stress. And it begs a really weird question. In that kind of abnormal environment, could having an abnormal mind actually be helpful?
Helpful? How?
Well, maybe a certain level of paranoia is actually rational because some threats are real.
Yeah.
And how does a quote-unquote normal person order killings and purges and then go have dinner? Maybe certain psychological traits make that easier.
It's hard to know without putting them on a couch, which isn't going to happen. But psychologists have tried to analyze them from afar, like Dr. Gerald Post, who did work for the CIA on leaders like Saddam Hussein.
Right. Post's analysis of Saddam described him as a malignant narcissist, which sounds bad, and it is.
What does that mean exactly?
Think extreme grandiosity, total self-absorption, incredibly sensitive to criticism, but with zero empathy for others. covering up deep insecurity with his inflated self-image. Plus, paranoia, aggression, antisocial traits, no real moral compass.
Traits that would be disastrous in a normal job.
Completely. But Post argued that in the brutal world of a dictatorship, some of those traits might actually help you survive. Ruthlessness, paranoia, the ability to compartmentalize.
But Post also said Saddam wasn't, like, clinically psychotic, right? He was still rational in his own way.
Crucially, yes. Post believed Saddam's #1 priority was always his own survival. He wasn't looking to be a martyr, wouldn't go down fighting in the last bunker if there was any way out. But corner him, then he'd be incredibly dangerous. His fundamental grip on reality, on his core goal of survival, was intact.
Okay. And that's a really important contrast to cases where a tyrant's mental state does completely break down, like Francisco Macias Nguema in Equatorial Guinea.
Oh, Nguema. That's a truly terrifying example of where mental deterioration becomes the critical weakness.
He started out just purely ruthless, right? Killing opponents, most of his first cabinet. His motto was basically, winner takes all, loser dies.
Absolutely brutal. And life for ordinary people was just horrific. No electricity, forced labor gangs. He banned the word intellectual. 2/3 of the population actually fled the country to escape.
There are those chilling accounts from prison like Pedro E. Kong and Dummers.
Unimaginable. Naked, concrete floor, beaten with a metal rod 150 times every week. Hearing people die around you, he scratched 157 marks on his wall for the weeks he survived until Nguema fell. Just unbelievable resilience.
So Nguema understood the insider threat. He tried to manage it with sheer terror, but his downfall was his health.
His health, yeah. Particularly his mental health. Apparently he knew he was sick, but he'd killed or driven out all the doctors. There was no one left to treat him.
And any sign of weakness, physical or mental, is just deadly for a tyrant.
It shatters that illusion of invincibility. Opponents see weakness. They see an opening. Even loyal supporters start thinking, well, he's not going to be around forever. As Juana de Mesquita and Smith put it, no leader can commit to reward supporters from beyond the grave. The elites know the clock is ticking.
And Nguema's mental state went way beyond just paranoia.
Oh, deep into psychosis.
Yeah.
He built a wall around the palace area, but then got too scared to sleep in the palace. Lived in this compound nearby, apparently with suitcases full of the country's cash reserves, just sitting in a hut.
And acting erratically.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Walking around crying out the names of people he'd executed. There's this one really disturbing account of him setting a dinner table for 8 imaginary guests and having conversations with them.
He'd completely lost touch with reality.
Totally psychotic. And crucially, his killings became random. No logic to them anymore, not even the brutal logic of purging potential rivals. And that triggered the Icarus effect in the extreme. Loyalty meant nothing. Anyone could be next, for no reason.
There was no upside to staying loyal, only terrifying risk.
Exactly. The final straw apparently came when he executed some militia leaders who'd asked to be paid. One of them was related to his own nephew, Teodoro Obiang, who was the deputy defense minister.
So Obiang saw the writing on the wall.
He looked at his uncle, looked at the random killings, and realized, I could be next. He had to act.
And he did.
He rallied forces, freed prisoners who were obviously desperate for revenge. They fought Nguema's loyalists. Nguema was caught hiding. There was a quick trial, and boom, shot dead.
So he didn't fall because he, misread the political situation. He fell because he wasn't capable of reading it anymore. His mind collapsed.
His mental state made it impossible for him to manage that insider threat, the very threat that ultimately got him. The chilling end.
Wow. Yeah, that story really ties everything together. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's quickly recap the main reasons why tyrants seem so vulnerable from within.
What we saw, it really boils down to their survival depending entirely on keeping that tiny core elite, the winning coalition, happy.
And that involves this dangerous tightrope walk, using carrots like money, often from things like oil that don't empower most people.
Right, and using the stick of repression and purges.
But that stick can backfire spectacularly. If purges get too random, you hit that Icarus effect tipping point where fear outweighs greed and elites turn against you for self-preservation.
Then there's the dictator's dilemma. Building a system on fear means you blind yourself. You prioritize loyalty over competence. Surround yourself with yes men.
Your view of reality gets warped, leading to terrible mistakes.
And finally, we saw how declining health, especially mental health, like with Nguema, just shatters the image of strength. It signals weakness, gives opponents an opening, and makes even loyalists nervous about the future.
It really seems like, while, yeah, external enemies and popular unrest matter, the research and the history strongly suggest the most frequent, most immediate threat comes from inside the gates.
It really does. It makes you think about the incredible isolation, the constant fear at the very top. Even the most powerful dictator can never really trust anyone. They're trapped by the same system that keeps them in power.
A truly chilling thought. And thinking about those insiders, that core elite, there's one group the sources really emphasize as being particularly important, maybe the hardest to control.
Ah, yes, the men with guns.
Exactly. Why they hold so much power and the unique challenges they pose. Well, that's